Hello, everyone, and welcome to ProcessFest 2022. My name is Andrew Blinko, and I am the Professional Services Manager at rapidMATION. rapidMATION is a Nintex partner based in Australia who have been delivering solutions using a Nintex platform to our customers for many years. In this session today, I'm going to talk to you about giving your HR onboarding process a makeover. So the world of work has changed dramatically over recent years, and so has the way that you onboard your employees. Today, we're going to look at how you can leverage the Nintex Process platform to digitize your onboarding process, boost engagement and excitement, and spark some human connection in a world where work is often done remotely. So we all know that people are any company's greatest asset. And businesses need to work harder than ever to recruit and retain people these days. Now, the first experience a new employee is going to have with your business is through the onboarding process. The experience they may have with this process will set the tone to acclimate, engage, and retain your employees. And that's why it's so important to get it right. So the world of work has changed, and so has the way that you need to onboard your employees. A paper-based process is not going to give your new employees a great impression of your business in this day and age. So the good news is that the employee onboarding process is one of the most common processes that we see automated in the Nintex Process platform. And this is no surprise, given that every business needs an onboarding process. So the Nintex platform has all the tools that you need to create a superior onboarding experience for all your new recruits. And here at rapidMATION, we want to give our new hires the best experience possible. But before we dive in and look at in more depth at our onboarding process, a few words about rapidMATION. So here at rapidMATION, we're all about something called intelligent automation. So what is intelligent automation? Intelligent automation we view as three different components. So the first one is understand. Before you can digitize or automate any of your processes, you need to understand them. Automating or digitizing a poorly understood process will not help anybody. So the need to understand your business process is key to the success in digitizing and automating them. Now, digitizing processes will allow your users to engage with those processes anywhere and anytime via mobile and desktop devices. The move away from paper-based processes also means to integrate your processes with line of business systems to reduce errors and improve efficiencies. And then automating frees up our users from performing manual and time-consuming tasks. So any manual, repetitive, and rules-driven process is a good candidate for automation. So let's talk about how we use this methodology at rapidMATION to automate our employee onboarding process. So first up, we use a tool called Nintex ProMap to map out our process so that we know exactly how our process works. Process mapping aids collaboration across your team to bring together fragmented information about your business processes into one clear map. And once a process is defined in ProMap, it can then be made available to your business users and even customers by embedding the process map in systems and tools that they already use to do their work or to interact with your business. So a process map in ProMap is a living, breathing document, and user feedback is encouraged to help refine and improve your processes. Another great feature of ProMap is that it can help you identify the automation opportunities. So it's a fully featured environment for engaging your teams, building accountability, fueling continuous improvement, and developing a culture of excellence. So next up, we're going to digitize and automate the process. So to kick off our onboarding process, a user is going to open up a Nintex form and complete the employee onboarding details. So this includes the new hire's personal details, job information such as title, salary, and start date. Once the user submits the form, this is going to start a workflow, and the first thing the workflow is going to do is assign a task to HR to approve the new onboarding process, the new employee. So HR can choose to either approve it directly or they can send it back for rework so that the requester can make some changes if necessary. Now, if HR provide approval, the workflow is then going to automatically generate a new employment contract based off our template stored in Sharepoint. And it's going to do that using Nintex DocGen. So DocGen allows us to tag a document with variables that are replaced with values from our form and workflow, such as the employee's name and address, and the employment details such as salary and start date. We're then going to take this generated employment contract and send it off for digital signature by the employee to their personal email address using Nintex AssureSign. AssureSign is Nintex's new electronic signature software that seamlessly integrates with the Nintex Workflow Cloud platform to allow for the secure signing of signatures from anywhere at any time. Once the document is digitally signed, we're then going to do a number of things. The first thing is to store that document in SharePoint Online so that the HR team have a record of it. We're then going to integrate with Azure Active Directory and create a new user there for our new employee. Once that's done, we're going to notify HR via email that the employment contract has been signed and provide details of the new user's login and password. And then we're going to wait until the start date of that employee and send them an SMS message welcoming them and providing a link to the Nintex dashboard for them to view some of their onboarding tasks. And we're going to do that using Nintex extensions to integrate with an SMS service. The process will also then assign the employee a couple of tasks to complete. One of them is to complete their superannuation choice form that allows them to nominate their preferred retirement fund. And we also ask them to provide an introductory paragraph about themselves. In addition, it'll also email the new employee a tax file number declaration PDF form for them to complete and return to HR. So the new employee can action those tasks via the Nintex form on their desktop or via the Nintex mobile app. Once the introductory paragraph has been completed by the new employee, the workflow is going to automatically post a message back to Microsoft Teams to alert the rest of the business that we have a new starter commencing. Now, to help us manage our process, we also use Nintex Analytics. And this gives us the ability to measure the efficiency of our workflow, track performance of it, and identify any bottlenecks. We also have full visibility into each process instance or workflow instance via the My Nintex portal, so we can see who did what, when, and where any particular employee onboarding request is at any given time. Okay, so we've had a talk about it. Now let's have a look at our intelligent onboarding solution in action. Let's start this demonstration off by having a look at the workflow in the design tool. So here's my workflow. The first step here is the start event, which is going to be configured to be a form. And so I'm going to open up the form designer. Let's have a look at that. I've got the rapidMATION logo at the top there and a form title. And there's a section here for the personal details, the first name, surname, email address, phone number, address, and state. And there's a section there for the job details, so the title, some dates, employment type, probation period, salary, hours per week, and bonus percentage. So I'm going to use all those values in the rest of the workflow. So back in the workflow, if I look at the variables here and look at the start event, we can see that all those values on the form are available for us to use throughout the workflow. Okay, the next step is we're just going to set the instance name so that when we go to look in any of the reporting tools, we can see which workflow we're dealing with by using the employee's name and the job title. The next step here is a branch by stage, and we're using this to implement a rework pattern. So a rework pattern allows us to send the workflow back to the originator if some changes need to be made to the initial document or the initial form that was submitted. So the first part here is this HR approval, and that assigns them a task. The HR people can either decide to approve that that new employee request, or they can ask them to rework it by changing some of the values on that form. If they're asked to rework it, then the stage changes to the rework stage over here, and we assign a task to the workflow originator to go and make some changes to the form. They can choose to either resubmit that form or just to cancel the whole thing and end the workflow. And then once they resubmitted it, we change the stage again back to the HR approval stage. Okay, so once the HR approval is obtained, we then move into the next part of the workflow. And this is where we're going to go and get the employee contract. So we've got that stored in SharePoint Online in the library. So I'm just pointing to that document, returning it to the workflow as a variable. And then I'm going to use my generate document activity here to actually go and turn that template into the employee contract. And to do that, we use this document tagging. So if I open up the Nintex document tagger here, what it's going to allow me to do is find the tags for all the variables that I want to put onto my template. So if I look at the start event here in form variables, you can see for first name, surname, etc. I've got a tag here that I can use. And all I need to do is copy that tag and then paste it into the right spot on the template. So we'll have a look at that template in a moment, see how that's configured. So this allows us to generate tags for Word, PowerPoint, or even Excel. So this step here is going to generate a new Word document for us based off the template and replace all those tags with the workflow variables that we need. Once we've generated that document, it's going to put it into a collection. The next step is just to grab that document from the collection. It'll be the first object in the collection. And then we're going to use that to go and get a signature from our new employee. Now, to do that, we're going to use Nintex AssureSign. So all I need to do here is specify the account that we're going to use and what template, and then pass in the actual document that we generated from the previous step here. Then we just need to specify who we're sending that to. We've got their first name and surname in here and their email address. I could also put in their mobile phone and then get them to do some two-factor authentication by putting in a password. In this case, we're not going to do that. And then we have the output of that, which is the Nintex Assure information about that particular envelope that was sent to the user. The workflow will pause at this point until the signature is obtained and then move on to the next step. And the next step is simply going to go and get that signed document because we want to store that somewhere and use it. So we're just going to pass in some details here. This envelope ID identifies the envelope that was sent to the user, and then we get back that signed document. And we want to store that signed document so HR can have a record of it. So we're going to create a folder in our document library. We're just going to name that folder after the user's name and job title. And then once we've got that folder, we're going to store that returned file, that signed file, into that folder for us to record for HR. Okay, once that's done, we want to now actually create our user in Azure Active Directory. And to do that, we're going to use this activity here. It allows us to connect to our Azure Active Directory tenant and then pass in all the relevant information for that particular new user. That'll output a new user object for us. And then when we send the HR email out, we can actually use that generated password in the email. So this email is going to go to the HR team, telling them the new document has been signed. We've got a link to the new document if they want to view it, and we've got the user information to pass on to the new user on his first day. Okay, so the next step of the workflow is actually going to just pause the workflow until the first day of the user's start at rapidMATION. So to do that, we're just going to calculate the number of days we need to wait by calculating the number of days between today and the start date. And then we're just going to pause the workflow for that number of days. Once that pause is finished, we're then going to send an SMS, and that SMS is using a service called SMS Global. I just need to pass in some information here about which account it is, and then the mobile number and the text that's going to go out. So it's fairly straightforward. That text message will go out to the new user, and then we're going to run these parallel paths. And we're actually going to create a couple of tasks for our new user. So we've got a workflow here that we're going to call. This is a component workflow. So this is another workflow, and we're just going to pass in the user's email address and name. And that's going to start a workflow that will assign the new user a task to fill in their superannuation form. Superannuation just being the retirement fund that the employee is going to pay into for them. The other workflow over here is asking them to input some information about themselves, a sort of short introductory paragraph that we're going to then use to post to Teams so that everyone in the business is aware that we have a new starter. We've also got a step here which is going to go and grab a file. It's going to get the tax file declaration document, which is a PDF, and it's going to grab that file and then send it off to our new user to tell them that they need to fill that in and return to HR at their earliest convenience. Okay, so once those 3 steps are executed, we're going to move on to the next step, which is to say the workflow is now complete. So before we kick this workflow off by submitting that form, let's have a look at a couple of the other components that go into this solution. So I'm going to jump across to SharePoint here, and we've got a document library here for employee onboarding and a folder here for templates. And this is where we're storing the documents that are going to be used by the solution. So the first one to look at is our employment contract. Now this is the document I was referring to earlier that we're going to grab from the library in the workflow and create the employment contract based off this template. So you can see in this template, I've got these tags here, and those are the tags that Nintex provides you in the workflow. So I just simply copied them and pasted them in here. And they're found all throughout this document. And then we've also got these placeholders for the signature and the date. Now, we're actually going to use Nintex AssureSign to populate those. So there's a couple of spots in this document where we need a signature. So let's jump across to Nintex AssureSign and see how that works. So in AssureSign here, I've got some templates. I'm going to click on my View Templates. And in here, I can see that I've got my employee contract one. So let's just edit that. The simple way to create a template is to just add the file in directly. So I just simply drag that file in from SharePoint and it's populated it into the template here. And you can see that I've still got all those variable that are in here from the SharePoint library. Okay, so there's a couple of spots here that I need to work with in terms of getting the signature and other details from the employee. So what we're going to use is these jot blocks over on the right-hand side here. So the jot blocks just allow me to add in placeholders for the user when they sign the document. So the important one, of course, is the signature. So if I click on this one, you can see here that it's marked as required and it's going to be certified. There's a little instruction here for the user and the style of signature, which can be either typed in or drawn with the mouse or both. There's also a block here for the date, and I don't really need the user to type the date in, so I'm just going to have it pre-filled here in this format. And down a bit further on as well in the document, we're also going to ask the user to sign the contract part of it and put in their name as well. So this jot block here has the user's name as part of it as well. And we're going to, I've got the wrong one then, sorry, the employee name here. And we can see that's going to be pre-filled to the employee name that we've set up. Okay, so once we've got that all set up, that's ready to be used by our workflow. Okay, so let's kick this workflow off and show you how it works. So here's my employee onboarding form. I'm going to quickly populate that with some data, and we're going to go and hire Mike Tyson. He's going to come to work for rapidMATION, and we're going to ask him to be our boxing coach. Funny that. So put him in there. The job offer is valid until the end of the month. The employment type is going to be part-time. He's going to start on the 1st of March. We'll give him a 6-month probation period. and we'll give him 20 hours a week, and he's going to cost us 150 grand a year. Bonus percentage we'll put in as 10%. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to submit that form off. And the first thing that's going to do is create a task for our HR team to go and approve this. So over in my email, I should have an email now as the HR approvers. It's telling me that there's been a new employee onboarding form submitted. Here's some details about it. Mike Tyson, our boxing coach, and it's going to ask me to approve this form. So I'm going to click on the link here. It's going to open up a form for me. This form's obviously very similar to the one we saw before. It's just a read-only version of it, and it's got a section here for the outcome. So I can either choose to rework or approve and put some comments in here. If I was going to rework it, I might be asking them to change something. In this instance, I'm just going to put approve and just put some comments there. And we'll submit that off. All right, the workflow is going to go and do its thing now. It's going to generate the document for us. It's going to then send that off for signature. So in a moment, we'll skip over to our mail and have a look at what the employee receives. Okay, so here we are in Mike's Gmail account, and we can see he's been sent a rapidMATION offer letter and employment contract, and it's available for signing. So all he needs to do is click on the link to begin signing. It'll open it up in the Nintex AssureSign site. And we can preview the document before we choose to sign it. We just click on that and we can start scrolling through, having a look at the document, and we can see that all the variables, or the tags, have been replaced with actual values. And then if we go down, we've got placeholders for the signatures. So let's go back here and agree that we're going to start signing that. It's fairly straightforward. We just either type in with the keyboard or draw with the mouse. So I'll just put MT there and adopt that signature. And then it's just simply a matter of going through the document and applying the signature and any other values that we need to. So there's a date here. Put the signature again in at the bottom and his name. And once we're done, we're going to click finish. It's going to then process the document with Nintex AssureSign, and then the workflow is going to continue on. So we'll wait a moment for that, and then we'll have a look and see what happens after that. So after the employee has signed the contract, the workflow is going to carry on and create the new user in Azure Active Directory for us. And then it's going to send out an email to the HR team. And that email is going to advise them that the employment contract has been signed and stored. There's a link there that they can go and view that document, and that the new user has been created, and the username and the password is then provided so that the HR team can actually go and provide that to the user on their first day. So let's now have a look and see what it looks like from the new employee's perspective. So we've jumped across to Mike's mobile device now, and we can see that there is a text message there from rapidMATION welcoming him and telling him that there's a few things waiting for him in his tasks for Nintex, and that he can also download the mobile app and action his tasks there. So if we skip across to the mobile app, you can see that he's actually got a couple of tasks in there. Rather than me typing on the phone, let's jump across to Mike's email and see what he needs to do there. So Mike's started on his first day and he's received a couple of emails in his inbox. There's one here asking him to go and complete his superannuation choice form. If he clicks on the link here, it's going to open up a form for him to go and nominate his chosen superannuation fund. I'm not going to fill that out for you, but you can see what he needs to do there. And there's another email here asking him to provide a couple of paragraphs about himself as an introduction to the team. And if we click on the link there, he gets another form. And in that form, it's just going to ask him for a bit of information about himself. So let's go and fill out a little bit of details about Mike. We'll just paste them in there. And all I do is hit submit, and that will post that off. And it's actually going to post that into the Teams channel. So if we jump across to Teams, here we are. There's a message from Mike saying, please welcome Mike to the team. Here's an introduction in his own words. And there's the words that Mike put on the form. And just to finish this demo off, let's jump over to SharePoint. And we have a library here where we're going to store all of our new employees' onboarding contracts. And we can see we've got a folder here for Mike. If we jump in there, we can see his employee contract there as well. And if I click on that, we can see the signed document that's come back from Mike has now been stored in our SharePoint library. And finally, let's have a look on the My Nintex portal. On my dashboard here, I can see all my latest form submissions. We can see that the status of this one's completed and when it was submitted. And if I click on it here, it'll give me the task history as well. So I can see who did the approval and when. And if I jump over to my Automate section here and look at my instances, we can see that if I go into this particular instance here, I get a whole bunch more information as well. I can see all the steps that happened throughout the workflow, and I can look at the instance start data as well if I need to. Okay, that concludes the demo. Okay, so let's just recap there and go through all the different parts of the Nintex process platform that we used. We used ProMap to map and understand and define our onboarding process and then identify any opportunities for digitization and automation. We also used the Nintex workflow to automate the business process and to allocate tasks to people and to interact with the different business systems. We used Nintex Forms and the mobile app to allow people to start processes and to action their tasks. We used the Nintex DocGen feature to take a template and generate a document based on the data captured by the form. And then we used Nintex AssureSign to pass that generated document on to somebody for their electronic signature. And then we captured that document, stored it back into SharePoint. We've also used Nintex Analytics as a way of monitoring our processes and checking on the health of them. We've used Nintex extensions to integrate with third-party services like the SMS service. And finally, we've also got Nintex RPA available to us if we wanted to automate any further downstream processes using robotic process automation. Example of that might be taking some of that data and pushing it into a HR system that does not have an API available, for example. Okay, so if you are interested in learning any more about this process, I encourage you to go and look at our website, which is rapidMATION.com. There's a whole bunch of material on there for you. And I'd like to thank you all for your time today. And please feel free to contact me on the email address on screen if you have any further questions or if you're interested in any type of product demonstration. So with that, I'll say goodbye and please enjoy the rest of ProcessFest 2022.